My name is Joonhyuk from University of Notre, and I'm really happy to present my work. I've been working on this project with Deep and Heritage Center in Google, and the last author is a friend of mine who was the senior data scientist at JD.com, from which we got the data experiment. Okay, so for the next 55 minutes or so, I want you to think about the search engine. Okay, the search engine, my title here, search engine, is not perfect, but I personally believe search engine has been a great invention we, as a humankind, has invented. It is solving a lot of problems. Either platforms, e-commerce platforms, or search platforms like Google, they're solving very, very complex problem. I mean, on the demand side, there are millions of users, trillions of users with heterogeneous preferences. On the supply side, I mean, they're looking at many multiple million, SKUs or products or documents, web documents, to sort them properly so that you find what you want. Okay, but the search engine is not perfect, right? And it especially so for new products. Why? Because, and why the search engine? Search engine is just a mapping of data into some sorted listings of the products or the search ranking. Right? And we have some problem about the new products with this product framework. Right? The code is from the search engines heavily rely on the user item engagement data. So by user item engagement data, I mean something like the page visits, right? We infer something from users' behavior. They visited after used these products or the listings, or they clicked, right? They liked by leaving like 5 stars or good reviews. Right? These are very positive or can be negative as well, but some signals about the quality of the products or the search listings or something you want to search or sort out. Okay, but by definition, new products didn't have enough time to accumulate this kind of data, right? So these types of data is very powerful. It can help a lot of solving the problems for existing products, but for new products, the data is really sparse. Right, and this is just form of a post-start problem, which is just a fundamental information problem for search engine design. This is the question we're trying to address in this paper. And what we do in this paper, we want to think about what platform does. Platform is just sitting between vendors and users, or buyers and sellers. And they're an intermediary. They are mediating information. And they're operating on 2 different markets. The one is the product market, right? They are selling their own products, like the private label I was talking about yesterday, or they're selling third-party or the vendors' products through, their technology, their website, or their supply chain, like that, right? And all the data they are using for the recommendation, or we talked a lot of recommendation. For search engine is coming from this product line. Okay, but there's another market in between vendors and platforms, which is the advertising market, right? This is nothing to do with the buyers, but now the sellers or the vendors are the buyers of the ad spot on a platform, right? And one nice thing about the advertising market is that the decisions are oftentimes made even for new products before the product release. Okay, so the data are there relatively more than other data we are using from the product. Okay, so if this is the case, why we are not using the data from just the big part of the platform, what platform is doing? That's the idea that we came up. We didn't come up with an idea, but that's the idea we have tested in this paper. And the idea is not new, right? The idea has been there for at least for 20, 30 years, right? And what is the conventional wisdom about mixing these 2 markets or separating these 2 markets is that do not mix the 2 markets. And the separation is so stark. It has been there for many, many years and many decades. One of the early observations or comment about these 2 markets, or the idea we're thinking about here, is coming from these 2 guys. Green and Page should be very familiar names to you. They are the 2 founders of the Google, and they wrote a very phenomenal or monumental paper back in the 90s. They presented Google the algorithm for the first time as an academic paper, and they had a appendix. The appendix A was titled as advertising motives. Right? I highly recommend you go and read the part in their discussion. They worry a lot about once you use advertising data to sort products, I mean, in organic search ranking, then there are gonna be a lot of negative consequences or unintended consequences about the search quality or the quality of the search rankings you're gonna show to users. All right, but this is what the industry has been doing so far. Do not mix up to market. Any clarifications about any feedback, comment? All right. And it is still true today. I mean, not today. I checked this website again this morning. They are not talking this part anymore. But when I was writing this paper a couple years ago, they were still clear about we are not using or mixing the two markets, and we use the advertising data to determine the organic search. Okay. But what we know from the theory or the older works we have generated from the as academics in marketing economics about how advertising works, we know the advertising can sometimes work as information, right? And there are two mechanisms. One is the advertising can be directly informative about the product's quality or the existence of the product's particular attributes like prices, right? There are lots of imperfect evidence that consumers are learning about these products by watching the advertising. And the platform implication is really simple. You should allow, that's the case, right? You should allow the platforms to operate on advertising market. And there's another part of the story, which is the indirect mechanism, where this is more subtle. This is a kind of equilibrium concept. In equilibrium, this higher quality sellers are more likely to advertise, and rational consumers are going to expect that the advertised products are going to be more likely to be of higher quality, right? So even without watching the advertising, just hearing from your friend, oh, some company is burning their money on advertising market, I should infer something about the quality of the product, right? And we have very small but growing empirical evidence on this mechanism. And the platform implication of this is unclear, and we have not seen any empirical paper. There are some theory papers, empirical papers, how platforms can use this mechanism or this channel of advertising can help to sort out good or bad, or high quality or low quality products. Got it? So the theory is very appealing, and I like it a lot, but it is not obvious. Even if you allow the company or any platform to mix these two markets and use the information from the advertising market or the product market or sorting the search rankings, it is not clear it's going to work for sure, because there are a couple of reasons. One is, I mean, we never know for a given market at a given time if there's going to be some equilibrium separation. Right? We all know about the Lemon's problem. If there's enough sufficient mass of low quality sellers who are trying to game the system and advertising their low quality product, that observing the advertising data will not help us to learn about the product. It's not going to be a very helpful signal about the quality of the product. Sure.
But how do you think about the objective? Right? Is it consumer's welfare, so the platform wants to suggest good products to consumers, or is it the platform revenue? If it's the latter, then let's say you always show advertised products in opposition of organic, then there's going to be obviously a revenue loss. Because the consumer might just click with organic.
Exactly. So what you're asking is, when designing a search engine, you're going to test whether this works well or not, and must be objective function there. And most companies are using some form of user engagement metric that can be value, that can cost if you know about the cost of things that you're selling. And you can also think about different time horizon. If you want to maximize a short-term profit just by looking at the very very short period of time, or you can just maximize the, over time, whether there's a churn or there's a long-term relationship with customers by showing certain types of the search listings. In the context we ran this experiment, they were looking at revenue. So I think it is debatable whether this is a good match with the outside option. They're gonna maximize over, but that was but
I guess they're behind positive effects of even in spite of this substitution.
And then I'll talk about the substitution. I'm going to talk about
I feel like you're fishing for someone to take your bait, and I'll take it because I used the search engines before Google, and they were mostly ranking links by payment, and those results were garbage. They were like really, really like the opposite of helpful in most contexts.
Google.
The pre-Google, the Alta Vista, the
Legos.
Yes,
that's why Larry and Larry wrote that appendix. People who was like those Yahoo, they were, their search engine was directory based. There's some kind of categorizing which the content say about one, but at that time, advertising was all over the places. So it's kind of understandable. Yeah.
It wasn't directory based. They had a search engine. You could put in a word, and then they gave you a list of results, and it was ordered by payment without the user statement. And it was really useless. It was mostly a waste of time.
Got it. I don't disagree with you, right? Yeah, it was like mid-90s. 2023, and maybe some of my slides later can help me to address. Yeah, something. Yeah. It depends on in what equilibrium we are in right now. I was saying. Okay. And the second thing is, even if advertising has something about the product quality on average, right? We're talking about redesigning the search algorithm at a company that operates over, several millions of dollars. Millions of users, and they're kind of platforms are kind of information powerhouse in these days, right? And they know a lot about the products. They know a lot about the users. They know a lot about what types of users are liking what types of products, right? So now the question is, if there's going to be any incrementality in terms of the value of information we can extract from advertising data or your seller's advertising action. The last thing is, we talked about the conventional wisdom or the industrial practice for the last 20, 30 years was not using this advertising data for organic search ranking. Now we have to persuade at least one company to run, design, and run this experiment.
So isn't there already a kind of natural experiment with Amazon essentially using ads to give you search results pretty much without even bothering to say that they're being unbiased? Because there are these, and $30 billion business now, and they're already doing it. And some consumers like it, some don't like it, but nobody goes to Amazon to find unbiased information.
As really good to know, I didn't know Amazon is doing that without telling us that they are doing that. So if they have been doing it for enough time, the company did, I run this experiment and not done that until we run this experiment. So we can think, I can look at it as a different, again, equilibrium. The seller's behavior and the difference between platforms. In one, you are not using the advertising data. In Amazon, you're using the advertising data. Maybe you can take the same experiment here and find different knowledge or learning. But the fact that some companies, some platforms like Amazon has been doing this already, it's not gonna, my claim is that it's not gonna invalidate what you're not reporting as an academic paper here, whether this is an impact or not. Is that your concern? I would disagree that, so there are some companies doing this already. What's the value of your paper? I wouldn't
I think that the challenge is that Google's PageRank algorithm was set up to solve a specific problem. And I also remember the days of Water Vista and Yahoo Search. And they essentially have built the self-reinforcing system moderated by a quality score that takes care of both problems. So on one side, where ads are information, to tell you this ad is information, and here there are no ads. So it's still not exactly clear what the problem is, because incrementally those ads on paid search results are actually giving you information that the ads implied because people are willing to pay for that. And these are click ads; they're not informative ads in the sense of giving you a product ad and so on. So I don't know. Maybe it's
just take it up. I've seen you about that. Yeah. Do they use search information as one of the inputs to the search area? I'm thinking that I can disclose that part. No, I'm being recorded. That's not just Indefinitely, because advertising actions can be correlated and other stuff, right? You sell this product, I mean, how for sponsored this and make you more likely to pay and that kind of thing.
Or as already like become this information on search, so it's as what like search for.
Yeah, I don't think
messages.
I agree with you. Advertising actions are correlated with many things. So even if, for instance, Google is aiming they are not using advertising data for that instance, it may seem they're using the other data there for access. But is it a problem in terms of our design and the integration of the collection? No, but that's related to the second one. If it is so much correlated with other stuff, you're not going to find it. Sure. Yeah. Got it. I'm on like page 10. Got it. So this paper, we worked with JD.com. JD.com is just like Amazon, second largest e-commerce platform in China, right? And we were successful to persuade this company to think about this problem and develop a new algorithm that is now using the advertising data as an additional additional features, or you can think of this as an extension of the information set the data scientists are using to design the search algorithms. And we found, we ran a platform-wide build experiment. So we designed two different kind of, search algorithms or different versions of the website or mobile app. In one, we are not using advertising data. Or in another condition, we are using advertising data and we randomize users into one of the two conditions for a limited period of time. And we measure whether in one condition they made more purchases in total. Okay. And we find, I cannot emphasize enough this short run part, but at least during the time period we were observing the data from the company, we find that the using advertising data has a positive impact on the consumer purchases. And the way we interpret that as, because they are making more purchases, it's helping the platform. And also the reason why consumers are making more purchases, that now consumers are happier with the search results that is using the advertising data, right? To give you some numbers, you're gonna find the conversion rate went up by, not went up, conversion rate is 0.25% higher in condition B where we are using advertising data. And also the number of orders and GMV revenue is higher with the condition, under the condition with advertising data. All right, so I told you that we try to be really careful about the interpretation of our result because we are just looking at these about 16 days of the experiment period and 3 months is after to talk about a little bit about the medium or longer run effect or post-experimental period analysis. But we never know. Now things may be different, right? Platform was really happy about the result. Again, this is another case where the platform, after seeing this result, rolled out this new algorithm to the entire platform, right? And they advertised, right, or they let the vendors know that now we are using advertising data to rank your products, the products you're selling in our website or in our app, and you organic search. Right? Now the vendors may have different mindset. Right now, they have different incentives or different levels of incentive to advertise on this platform. They may think differently about the pricing strategy. They may think differently about the investment in the quality, something like that. So we never know with this data how much changes we're going to have from that dimension, and what's the impact of that longer run impact of their different, the margins of assessment on your consumer welfare, consumer purchases, and sales revenue. Okay. So to be more precise, if you want to test out something like, hey, we are now in a world where we have not used the advertising data, but we want to test what if I use it. There can be two things. One is local or partial equilibrium effect, or the global or the general equilibrium effect. Then what we do in this paper is that the platform is in world A. We are not using advertising data, and we pick a small fraction of traffic and treat them A or B. Right? This is a local estimator. But what you ideally want to do is you wait for some time for the market to re-equilibrate, okay? And take the B from here and make the comparison between A over here and B over here. This would be the ideal experiment to estimate the general equilibrium effect of using or changing your algorithm from any perspective. Got it? But we cannot do that. There's time separability. We cannot be sure. You have to wait for how long? Like 1 year, 6 months? And the markets will be different. This is not the only thing you're going to change about your businesses. Or you can think about two different markets and do something here, nothing here. But there's another separability problem here. I was calling spatial separability. This is a very difficult stuff to do. I'm just asking for excuse that they cannot do it. Okay. And then, what's the interpretation of our result in our paper is that we are answering this specific question. The industry, maybe I should not use the term industry, but there are some other players have been using the data, but at least for this company, at least for this platform, they have not used advertising data for many, many years. So we can expect they are in an equilibrium between sellers and vendor and platform, but everything where advertising is not used.
I think since you mentioned this, you're conflating a search engine with e-commerce platforms that use a search engine. Those two are different things.
Yes,
So I think what you're doing is the latter. That's fine.
Yes.
But it has nothing to say about a search engine like Google, which has a completely different objective function, like I was asking earlier.
Okay. I'll look at searching for information. So back to the slide, it's a little wordy, but we are asking that if there's any incentive for the platform to deviate from this goal of not using advertising data. And we are just saying that we are documenting that there is some incentive. This is not optimal, at least when the role is under A, right? And there's some or maybe the regulators can take this message differently. Oh, now I can understand why there are a lot of claims, about platforms are using separate data, not telling the vendors about it, or not telling users about their using it. Okay. So,
just to clarify, you're not going to talk about how sellers change in response to the global rollout.
Am I going to talk about that right now? I'm going to talk about a little bit about that using the data within the 3 months after the rollout. We could get, I feel really lucky we could get that part of the data, but after that, no. So just 3 months. So I mean, I don't know whether 3 months is enough for these types of businesses to equilibrium, right? Or we should maybe look further. And but all right, so I'm just going to talk about 3 things today after this long overview of the paper, but I've told you all the essence about the paper. But it's just a little bit more about the experimental design, what I mean by using advertising and not using the advertising, and key research and how the platform responded and the post-response analysis, and also the implications of the paper. So I'm going to skip the literature in the interest of time, but just want to mention that our discussant for this paper today, Fei, has written a wonderful paper. It's a theory paper on the same topic, same question, I mean, similar question and similar topics, but with much broader scope, because Fei's paper is also thinking about something about the commission rate and the pricing and everything, but our focus is just about abstracting away everything, abstracting away things like how platforms gonna change the commission fees and other decisions about this market. Is this new the search algorithm gonna have any impact? Okay. So theory so I'm gonna skip this again. Skip this part again. I want to tell you about, I told you that the half of the traffic of the 7.7 million people were sent to a condition where, I mean, this is a legacy condition. We are not using advertising data. And the other half was sent to the condition where we are using advertising data. So we want to have some good understanding about what search engine has been designed in this platform before we think about the treatment. So a very simple architecture of search engine is like this. The user submits query to, so the platform is asking user to provide some input to source the products. And then the platform is gonna return the ranked list of the products. And the search engine, what the search engine is doing is 2 things. One, they are gonna compute the search score, right? For every product or some selected product, given the search query. And the data they have and some function parameters governing this process. And after that, the problem is easy, can be easier, right? Just by sorting the product, you can just return the list to the users. And the data they're gonna use for that scoring function is gonna be the features. And this is gonna be the product and consumer product data or the user data if you're personalized like that, right? Now you can see, new products, again, they do not have that much dense data in this part. So if you're just using this framework, the new data, new products will not be able to compute with existing for all products.
So are they using the information about how the new product is similar or different than existing products?
They are using in many different ways. First of all, they are using the information to validate whether this is really new. Some sellers are claiming, just repost their product and whether it's new. And also for the search, and also the part feature. And again, this is not something I can disclose, but if you know a little bit about the recommendation system, you can think of the matrix factorization, collaboration filtering, versus some product-based, the feature-based filtering. They're just mixing this kind of ensemble of and algorithm A, and the platform has known about this problem for many years, and just they have not used their advertising data. Now, just using this one, new products never show up on consumer search result. So we want to boost their rankings just using the same. Just like that, this item J has been classified as or claimed as new product. I'm gonna give you some additional extra boosts as a score to go up there to boost their rankings. Okay, and this is a legacy algorithm. One of the treatment can be by having this experiment. The second one is under the same framework. I'm gonna just expand the information set from XJ to XJ plus advertising data. right? And let the boosting algorithm to use this expanded information set to recompute the boosting scores. What advertising data we are talking about in this paper, it's super simple. It was the starting of this project, the whole project. In this version, we were using just 2 variables. This is literally like you're asking your data scientist or the team of the data scientist, hey, here are 2 new variable columns. Why don't you come up with a new algorithm? Why don't you re-optimize your algorithm with these 2 new columns, 2 new columns of data, right? One is whether this product has been advertised in the past 10 days, and the second is how much money was spent on advertising this product in the past 10 days, right? Not.
What again? Why any items you bought on this question was
it was a time of function of the time, but across users there was no personalization.
What's the definition of an item JV? Like, sorry, when is an item no longer considered new? Like, what's the distinction between new and not new?
There's a number. Okay. There's some number, and the boosting, the extent to which you boost this product as a new product is declining over time, and it
so like
eventually becomes 0.
Basically, so there's like some weight applied to this score that you're calculating the yellow box. That weight goes down over time. That's
yes. Yes. Sorry, super.
So looking at the implementation of this, it seems like if I spend that money, then this money is not just providing me the ad, but also boosting the organic.
Yes.
Is there any information? So it's closing now because of the ad money. I start this.
During the experiment period was short, 16 days, and we did not believe any sellers would have recognized that they are using advertising data being used for new algorithm. Very small fraction of users randomizing saying. And in the wrong answer experiment, and when this new algorithm was folded out, now they just let them know that it's being used. If there's a negotiation.
So I'm thinking about, in order to implement this, clearly there is some legal consideration about whether I should disclose this information that the seller had this product, and then because of this money, the ranking is boosted.
Oh, again, during the experiment period, they did not disclose it. Right, it was just health things for certain. Should there have
Okay, guys.
No.
Let's
No.
wrap up by 11:55.
11:55.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 minutes.
So I think questions.
Right. Yeah, we have lunch after this. Yeah. So that, I mean, maybe I can just point out a few more things I think important. The one is, I mean, now we're thinking about not only the expansion of the information set, but we have retrained the algorithm. So the question is, what is treatment here? So we think of this as the treatment is not just about using the advertised data, but also how the data scientist team or the search team has responded to the added features to their information set. So we are thinking of these both things as our treatment, and we have some analogies here, and I'll skip it. And again, the substitution part, the search listings or search results is just like the shelf space, it's a fixed rest. You know, it's just a shelf space in the applied data store. So if something goes up, something goes down. Right? So for sponsored listings, there has been no change. We did nothing about the sponsored listing, but the organic listing, we just boosted previously advertised new products, right? So all the products that has not been advertised or not non-new product, their ranking is gonna go down, right? Go down. So and we're gonna measure what's the net effect of all the changes. I'm gonna skip this slide and key reader. We're looking at 3 different measures: conversion rate and number of orders, log scale, GMV. And all the numbers here are somehow masked or normalized, other than this percentage changes. So we can see the, for instance, for GMV, we're talking about 0.57 point. And if I'm saying it is both statistically and economically significant, because the company is like 400 billion USD revenue here. So even 0.57% changes, we're talking about $2.2 billion. And more interesting thing is when we decompose, break down this research by the types of the business. So the first three columns, I'm showing you what's the impact on advertised new products. So they are the products that, I mean, their rankings got boosted. And non-boosted products, we see if they were on organic listing, their sales went up, right? Their sponsored listing, their sales went down, the substitution again, right? But the net effect is positive. And for non-boosted product, and even for non-boosted product, we see their sales, purchases for this non-boosted sales went up. This should be positive because their ranking got worse, right? But we see more purchases of these items at the same time, right? It's kind of too for this treatment. And the reason why, I mean, this is just one explanation, why we see this kind of patterns in our research is that because people who got treated with this new algorithm where we use advertising data are more likely to return to the platform and make search and make purchases. Okay, so in the paper, we divide the time period into the first half and second half and track the people who got into this experiment on day one, right? And there's no difference on return rate between this A and B users during the first half of the time. But for the second half of the days, I mean, there are significant gap between the treatment A users and treatment B users. Right? And yeah, I may get to discuss it. So the platform was really, I mean, they like this, right? Now, the story I'm telling to the company is that, hey, you can use the advertising data. It's going to have a dual goal. The consumer's going to be happy. We just tested it into the experiment. And also, if you disclose this information to the sellers, as they did in Chinese, and I have this Google Translate version here, then you're going to incentivize the sellers to advertise more on your platform, right? So, I mean, you can have more sales. You can have $100 from ad market. So the company went on and rolled out this new algorithm across different product categories within 1 to 3 months after the experiment. Okay, and it was good because we made it again an impact, and also it gave us an opportunity to think about what are some post experimental or post rollout impact. To speak a little bit about the longer term effect of changing the algorithm from A to B. So we looked at how users behave after the rollout, and also the adoption was staggered across different product categories. So we could exploit the variation across the different product categories in adoption timing to measure what's the ratio of the new products as listed for this product category, and then what are some quality proxies like the star ratings, is there any changes or not? And we find no evidence overall, right? I mean, just within these 3 months, using advertising data has any negative impact on user side, no negative effect. Seller behavior, they responded by adding more new products. I think it was about 20 to 30%. And the quality, I mean, we never achieve quality, but I mean, just you infer from this, some of the proxies, we didn't find any evidence of the compromise effect on quality. And as an equilibrium outcome, so the new products, the sales for new products went up without cannibalizing the existing product sales. Okay, and I think I just need 2 minutes more. So this is where we started, right? We observed, at least for this e-commerce platform, there has been a separation between these two markets. And I did my summer internship there, and there are 2 different teams, right? They are reporting to different VP. They have different managers there, right? This is a search team. This is an advertising team. Advertising is team is doing everything about setting the advertising prices, the commissions, and also the auction mechanism, things like that. And search team never cares about whatever the team is doing, right? The discussion between the two team leaders are just about, oh, how many sponsored listing spots we want to have in search listings. But what you show in the organic search listings, ad team has no voice there, right? And what kind of product you show in the sponsored listing places, the search team has no voice, right? They never talk. It's kind of siloed, to organizations. But our paper is saying that, oh, maybe there's some problem. I don't know. I mean, you guys should talk, right? You guys should talk and think about, and maybe you can design a new algorithm and test it and testing it to see if there's any negative stuff. But what we are reporting in this paper is that this strict separation between the two markets and the two teams should be done. And again, as I told you, it has an implication not only for the platforms but also for the regulators to think about how would the FTC respond to this kind of thing. Okay? And I want to stop just after saying this myself claim. I think this is this paper is a good, nice showcase of an ongoing importance of theory in the development of machine learning and AI. There's a lot of people claiming that data can help, solve everything. AI, machine learning, they are the solutions. But the reason why we have and we could persuade the company to think about to do this, to act on this, is because we have strong, researcher and strong theory development practice. All right, and with that,
So first, thanks for the conference organizers to invite me the program for asking me to discuss this paper. I have known this paper, I think, from the very beginning, so I was actually very, very excited to read the final version. And I think based on our most recent conversation, the paper is conditionally accepted, right? Yes. Yeah, so that means my job is easy, and I'm going to summarize what is great about this paper and also throw some thoughts about what could be the future research opportunities. Okay? So first I want to say this paper is very, very practically impactful. Okay, so they did a full-scale A/B test. The company is JD.com, but based on the data, you can think about it similar scale as Amazon.com. So the A/B test is to all the users for the platform. And the result is also good. And after this A/B test, we roll this algorithm to the whole platform. Okay? And they also implement the existing organic ranking algorithm at full scale. So it's really a lot of effort, a lot of challenge. I can imagine the amount of work put into making this actually come true. Okay? And second, the result is also very impactful. Okay? Not just in terms of making more money for the company, but also in terms of being interesting economically. Okay? Because if you think about the problem, what's the conventional wisdom, or what is status quo? You have ads, you have organic ranking. Let's not mess them up. Let's keep them separate. And that's the approach that Google is adopting. And I think some of the questions come up in the audience. When you actually think about this idea in the vertical search engine, Google is a general information search engine. When you rethink the same problem in the vertical product search engine like Amazon or JD.com, what could be different? I think there are two key differences here. One is the revenue. Google only make money from ads, but Amazon not only make money from advertising, also make money from commission, which related to product sales. So the platform's incentive is much more rich in this setting. The second, Google doesn't have pricing issue. It's just ranking the listings. But for Amazon, whenever you change the rank algorithm, it could change sellers' pricing incentive. And that again will have a bite on the platform's commission revenue. So I think we'll apply it's not just applied to vertical product search engine, but also a set of problems you're facing. The amount of instruments you're having is much more rich for this setting. Okay? So I think that's the second great thing about this idea. So sort of the result goes against the current approach in a more rich framework. And the third is also the central idea is has a solid theoretical foundation. As you can think about from earlier paper, 1970s, from this advertising signaling of product quality starting from there. And I think some of the co-authors also had shown that it's actually advertising can signal product quality in e-commerce platform. And then from there, I also have a paper. So this is an analytical paper applying a very similar idea. So if you can take seller space in the auction, you use the information to rearrange organic ranking, what could happen? And I think it's complementary to a Joonhyuk approach, not only because the difference between analytical, theoretical, and empirical, but also we're taking different perspectives. Okay, so this paper, our paper is more about, so questions come up too. So this paper is more about, if you do this, how is it going to affect seller space? How is it going to affect platforms' revenue? In the longer term, platforms not earning revenue just from ads, also from commission. How is it going to affect pricing? So overall, what's the longer term effect? More from the seller and platform's perspective. But Joonhyuk, I think as a first empirical paper to test this is taking more from the consumer perspective, keeping everything as the same. If I do a perturbation, if I just change the ranking, how is it going to affect consumer behavior? Do they buy more? Do they come back more often? So that's, I think, the different approach. One is more like attribute analysis, but this is short-term effect of consumer behavior. Okay? So that is what I like about this paper's contribution. And I'll just spend a little more time on the mechanism. So this, yes, due to limited time, didn't have enough time to get into this. Okay, so again, starting from this advertising decision can be possibly correlated with product quality. In this paper, I think they have some evidence for this in the initial version, but in the final version, this is like taken given. So if you take this as given, and if you do whatever the proposed mechanism, the new algorithm can make user experience better. And because of that, it will come back to the platform more often. And it is returning effect that is driving the result. It's not signaling game. It's not about if you do this, you promote a better quality product, and they just purchase more on spot. It's not just a first-time effect. What's happening here is you do this, users feel better, they come back more often, they buy more. It's the returning that is driving this effect. And when I read this, I feel I totally buy this story. I think it's happening. Just a little bit more evidence supporting this mechanism with the data could be better. Because right now it's more like showing them separately. You have evidence about they return more often. You have evidence about in total they buy more, just a little bit more connecting those stories will be better. Okay? And also there's another side story also shows doing this is actually win-win, not just for the platform, not just for consumers, not just for the focal advertiser, also help the other products. I think this is a nice result. And I think just throw us out, could it be because something else? Because right now, think about, let's say there are 3 positions above the fold. Now you have the same seller taking 2 positions. The same seller is taking the sponsored and second organic slot. And by doing that, you make the amount of product in the consideration set smaller. So could that be driving this sales of non-boosted product? But again, I don't think it's going to mess up with your central idea, just a thought. Okay? And from there, I will spend 1 minute talking about what are the future research opportunities? Again, I think the authors has done a great job in carefully specifying what this paper is about, what it is not about. This paper first is not attribute. It's not attribute analysis. It's also not about signaling. It's about this returning, making a purchase more. I think that's very good because they're just so complicated and you need to carefully delineate the boundaries. Okay? And there are 2 things. I think one that could be easily testable is what's the effect on sellers' advertising decisions, because it can go both ways. Whatever happening now is if I bid for sponsor ads, I get also a better organic placement. In other words, I get more value for the buck. In this case, MARA is higher, I can spend more on ads. Can also go the opposite because this is solving code start problem. And now, based on whatever you're doing, maybe the code start problem will be easier to solve. Then I would just spend maybe 2 days, 3 days on the ads, and I'm good enough. I'm accumulating enough sales. I can just rest on my laurels later because the cold start problem is very easy to solve in this case. So there could be a short-term positive effect, but longer-term negative effect. What's the overall? I think you don't need equilibrium to have in this case, but should be easily testable. Another story is, will that affect platforms ad revenue? If so, because you have some conflict interest here, what's the attribution model to make this like whole blown out implementation? Okay. That I will talk to you about that later. All right.